Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Sane-ish podcast for people healing with trauma, addiction, abuse, mental health struggles, grief, narcissists, and every other flavor of chaos life can throw at you. And somehow we're still functioning, mostly. I'm your host, Holly Broughton, survivor, truth teller, boundary setter, and proud member of the Still Healing and Hilarious Club. Around here, we don't do shame or embarrassment. We don't do perfection. Just real talk, dark humor sometimes, hard truths, and a whole lot of hope. Because sanity is sometimes overrated, and healing, well, it's just messy sometimes. So this is Sane-ish, and we'll get into it. And if you're joining us for the first time, sometimes it seems that we are just trying to claw our way out of things, and it's not easy. And sometimes things get overwhelming in life. And I have been there. I've had a village. We were just talking about this. I've had many people help me. And my next guest, for the last several episodes, I've started my podcast off by saying this is a good friend of mine, but this lady, I met her just by chance, but she was an angel, and I'm so grateful that I met her because she was an inspiration, and she was just a light of hope, and she was encouragement, and she was just a light worker. And she's one of the reasons why I'm here today, and I told her that. So anyway, please welcome Linda Benz. Linda,
Hello.
welcome to Sane-ish.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. I'm thrilled that you are doing this. I absolutely love it. And I love the title too, Sane-ish. What is sane? Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
funny, but I mean, it fits. Well, I mean, it
Yeah.
fits me. I don't know about anybody else,
No, it fits me
but
too.
yeah.
I get it.
So anyway, and one of the things that that you and I haven't, well, I mean, we have a few things in common, but one of the things uh, that I'd like to talk about specifically uh, is that, you and I are highly sensitive people. And before we get into your story, would you like to explain what highly sensitive people are to our viewers and listeners?
Yes. Well, to put it as simply as possible, there's been a lot of research into this over the last 20, 25 years or so. And it shows that highly sensitive people, which is about 20% or so of the population, our brains and nervous systems are wired differently. We use different parts of our brain. We use more parts of our brain. We're just sort of wired differently from the majority of people. So what that means is that we experience life differently. We see and hear and feel so many more things that other people don't. And not only do we see, hear, feel them, it's a bodily experience. So, for example, when that happens and you're seeing and feeling and hearing and experiencing all these things, it can get very overwhelming. And it's not just like I'm hearing noise and it's overwhelming. I'm feeling that in my body. I can't be around crowds because I just feel myself shrinking. It's like it's so overwhelming. Not just because there's a lot of people, but I'm sensing the their energy, their emotions, all of this energy is affecting me. So highly sensitive people also notice subtleties, things that other people really are not aware of. And there's usually a high level of intuition with highly sensitive people. Often they dismiss it or ignore it because they don't tend to trust themselves. But really, that's what it means to be highly sensitive. We're experiencing the world in a different way. And when you try to explain that to someone who doesn't understand high sensitivity or is not highly sensitive themselves, they can think you're crazy. What do you mean you're hearing this or you're seeing this or you're smelling that? No, I don't see that, And so we tend to very much come into ourselves if we don't understand what high sensitivity means and if we're around other people who don't.
Okay.
So I hope
Yeah.
that helps.
Yes. I mean, it helps me because I don't know about you, and we'll obviously get to your story, but um, when I was growing up, I was a very my mom will vouch for this, but I was a very quote unquote emotional child. But looking back, I was more intuitive,
Mm.
feeling child. And
Yeah.
now that is why I was a
Yeah, and
highly sensitive person.
you can feel and take on the emotions of your family, your parents, whatever's going on around you. You don't just notice it, but you can take it on and feel it physically in your body as well. And if you're not sure if it applies to you, if you've ever been told you're too sensitive or you take things too personally or you're too emotional to anything really, and then it's quite possible you might be highly sensitive.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the explanation, and let's go ahead and let's hear your story. Let's start off with your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Goodness. Well, when it comes to childhood, I don't often remember some very specific things, or I never remember. People will say, "Well, how old were you when that happened?" or "What year was that?" And those kinds of things I don't remember. So I'll share with you what I do remember. And I was doing a participating in a program a couple of years ago, and as part of this program, they had you find a picture of yourself as a child and really sort of look at that picture and talk about what you see. So I grew up feeling very insecure, no confidence, no self-esteem whatsoever. And one thing people always told me was I was very serious. I took things too personally. I was too sensitive. I was too serious. And when I looked at that picture of me as a child, what I realized was I was a very joyful, happy child when I was really young. And it suddenly occurred to me, I thought, oh my gosh, where did that child go? What happened to her? And I even remember one time, must have been in kindergarten or something like that, where they sent home little report cards. You took little report cards home that talked about, how well you've been doing, and all of that. And I remember um, my I think it was my father reading it out, and it was saying what I was such a joyful child, and people loved being around me, and all of that. And what occurred to me was that how that had been covered up. So where did she go? So essentially, what I became aware of as I was growing up was that there was something wrong with me. That's how I felt, because everything I said, everything I did was wrong. If something went wrong in the house or at home, it was my fault, whether I was there or not. And so I began to feel very alone. In fact, I loved to read, and I think I spent the majority of my childhood shut in my room reading. Um, I was not allowed to have friends over. I was not allowed to go to friends' houses. and what I realized is that my mother, what I know now is that my mother, who is a narcissist, was very afraid of, and she still is afraid of people seeing her, judging her, that kind of thing. So for a narcissist, one thing people have to understand is for narcissists, everything is always only about them, right?
Right.
It's about
Yes.
how things affect them. So that was my experience growing up. My father left when I was young. I don't remember what age, but he left. I remember there were fights. There was a lot of shouting. I remember my father punched the wall once because otherwise, he, I guess, instead of punching her. Anyway, there were fights. It was not a very comfortable environment. My father left, and then we were left with my mother. And she saw me, I think, as being in the way. I mean, she told me she'll deny all of this, of course, now, but she told me more than once that she wished I hadn't been born, that I was the cause of all her troubles. And I think in the absence of my father, because a lot of people say I'm like my father, um, and what I learned later about narcissists is they need a scapegoat. They need someone to blame for everything. And so that was me. And I have a brother, and she he was always the golden child. It's like, so that's what happens with narcissists. They have someone who's the chosen one and someone who's the scapegoat. So I was the scapegoat, which is why everything was my fault. And so I became very good at being invisible, or as invisible as I could be, because if I was seen, it didn't matter what I was doing, I was probably going to get in trouble for it, right? And I couldn't, if I was having any fun, heaven forbid anything should be fun, I would definitely get in trouble for it. Um, so it was a lot of that growing up. And so as I sort of started going out into the working world, that's,
So let me stop
yeah.
you here. So as a child, were you an anxious child because of that? Because I know for me that caused me a lot of anxiety when you can't do anything right. Because you're trying to do everything right, and then
Yeah.
you
Well, it made me very much of a perfectionist. I was always
right,
trying so
right.
hard. So yes, I guess it did make me an anxious child. And I always, once I left home and started going into the working world, I really felt like an imposter. Like any minute now, they're going to find out I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a really bad person, and I shouldn't be in this job or whatever. So yes. So I guess it did make me anxious. Yes.
Okay.
And I always, even when things were going well, I always expected something to happen. Something was going to go wrong, and of course, it would be my fault. And so I carried this weight inside me that I was not a good person. Why was I even here? Everything I did was wrong. That's how I felt about myself. And it took sort of going to work, and the thing that surprised me was the people around me, my bosses especially, would always tell me what a great job I was doing. I would get promoted, and I would think, well, any minute now they're going to find out this is wrong. They shouldn't be promoting me. But that sort of planted a seed and started me questioning the conditioning that I had, and the belief that I had that, I was deeply flawed and there was something wrong with me. It just planted that seed and started me questioning that. And my experiences outside of my home were that people responded well to me. They thought I did a good job, and so I guess you could say it started me on this journey of questioning what I'd been brought up to believe.
Okay. And so, and this was back in England, correct?
Yes,
This was
yes.
okay. So 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 I- and narcissist, and I take it with the narcissist, there's a lot of gaslighting going on. So
Mm.
there's a lot of, and when there's a lot of gaslighting, uh there's a lot of you're second guessing yourself.
Always.
There's a lot of self-sabotaging. Um,
All of that.
yeah. And so, yeah. So there, and there's a lot of mind games. And then when
Oh,
there's a lot of mind games, then this is going crazy. So,
yeah. And I remember, I was always trying to so hard to get even one sort of word of approval or acknowledgement in some way. And I realized eventually, once I understood about narcissism more, that the more you try, the more energy you're giving to that person, and the less they
yeah.
think of you, the worse it's
Yeah.
going to be. And so what I realized was I had to stop. So even if, for an example would be, if my mother was complaining about something, or something that was hurting, or something that was going badly in her life, and I would try and make her feel better, and I would offer solutions. Of course, she didn't want to hear any of that. She wanted to be in her misery, if you like, and
Right.
bring me in there with her. And so what I realized is that I had to release all my expectations of her, right? This is who she is. This is what she does. So now what am I going to do about it? How am I going to be in a relationship with her? And that means that, if she's saying something really negative, I just listen. I just, maybe even agree with her, but I don't try to change it. I don't try to make her feel better. It just is. So I don't give anything. Even if she's trying to hook me in by saying something about me, um, I don't go there. I don't engage with any of that anymore. And that has enabled us to have, if you can have a relationship with a narcissist, that's enabled us to at least be able to be in the same room together. Only because I just don't give any energy to it at all.
That's very smart. And I commend you for doing that, because it's being around a narcissist is very difficult.
It
Uh,
is. It is. I was
very
talking to
challenging.
Yeah,
Very
I was
challenging.
talking to someone recently, and she'd come a long way in the healing of the relationship with her mother, who is a narcissist. And she said, "Oh, I can't wait for the day when I can go and be around my mother and just totally be me, just be myself, and feel really good being around her." And I said, "I don't want to burst your bubble, but that's not going to happen, because you cannot be yourself, right, around a narcissist. I can't be myself around my mother. I have to shut down parts of me, right, and just not engage. That's not who I am. I'm a much different person to that. But that's what I have to be when I'm there for my own self-preservation, right?
Sure, sure,
And so there's never going to be a day when I can go and be around my mother and to completely be myself, and for her to accept me. No, not never
sure,
gonna. And it's okay. I don't need it anymore. I truly don't need any of that anymore.
sure. Do you feel like, do you feel like possibly there might, like your mother might be a little, there might be some jealousy, maybe?
Hmm. Yes, I've always felt that. Um, yeah, I mean, because maybe I've I had no expectations. There were zero expectations for me as I was growing up. It didn't even occur to me that I could have any goals for my life.
Hmm.
The expectation, I think, really was that the best I could hope for was to get a job that was okay, and to meet someone and get married and have children, um, and hope he was a decent husband. I mean, that really was it. And
Hmm.
so I think, yes, there's jealousy, but I think there's also confusion, because she truly doesn't understand me, and the work that I do. She knows I've written books. She knows the sort of the work I do. She never asks me about it. She has no interest. In fact, one day when I was with her, she said, "Oh, I think it's really sad, that we can't have a good mother-daughter relationship. And basically what she was saying is it's my fault because I live so far away. I'm in the US now. And so she's saying this, it's such a shame because, I don't feel we know each other. And I said, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. So what do you want to know about me? Ask me anything. And she said, no, that's all right. So, exactly, because you don't want to know, you don't really care. It's not about that, right? So, so
There you go.
yeah, there you go.
There's your
That kind of
answer.
sums it up.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
there.
But the thing is, if you know that, right? I mean, that did not bother me in the least because now I know that.
Yeah,
Whenever I was, if I wanted her to be interested in who I am and what I do, that would have upset me, but it didn't
sure.
because I know she's not interested and she can't comprehend. She did say to me once about, I was going to go on a client call and she said, so you go on calls and help people? And I said, yeah. She said, why? I was like, why would you want to help anybody? Well, because I'm a very different person to you. No, but
Well, you
yeah.
you wouldn't understand.
No, no, it's just, and it really isn't in her comprehension, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
again, for narcissists, it's always only about them. And once you understand that,
correct.
it really helps you to let go of so much.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
It's just and it's in some ways it's funny, but in other ways it's really not funny. It's really sad.
It's sad, and
It's very
I
sad.
know that she has a lot of insecurities, and I think it comes from that. I think there's a lot of insecurity there, and I think how awful it must be. Narcissists don't see it this way, of course, because they're only thinking about themselves. But I think, well, how for me it seems how awful it would be to only be ever concerned with how things affect you and not care about anybody else at all. But and the other thing with narcissists is they never ever can see that there's anything wrong with them. It's always everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's constantly blaming. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they don't have any friends.
Mm.
They don't have any friends. They don't have uh yeah, and then half the time I'm thinking, don't you get sick of yourself? I would get tired of my own shit. I would get tired of my I would get
Yeah.
tired of my own crap.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, if there's anything, I don't know. Sometimes I feel, and I've said this before, I think she's happy in her misery.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
sometimes people are that they are, it's almost like they're addicted to misery and
yeah. I
what's
think
going wrong and I think one of the hardest things for me when I understood it was that, and this what could be a trigger for me. It's not anymore because I understand it now. But she's talking about the past, and that's what she loves to do, talk about the past, how terrible my father was, and all the bad things that have happened to her. And she will rewrite memories and she truly believes her version of the memory. It's like, something that happened and what I did or didn't do. And, I used to say, well, no, that's not how it was. And now I know better. You're never going to win an argument with a narcissist, right? Their
no.
version is right. So
No.
just let it go. Let go of the need to be right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the key because we're very fortunate because and I mean you and I, meaning us as kind of normal people, we like to improve upon ourselves and grow, whereas narcissists just stay. They don't
Yeah,
They don't want to improve.
no, they don't want to. They don't see that they have to. That they don't see any possibility of that. And, at the same time, having said all of this, she's been my biggest teacher, and I would not be doing what I do now, and I would not have the depth of knowledge and be able to help other people who've grown up with narcissists if it wasn't for her. So, on the one hand, I'm very grateful for every painful experience because it's taught me a lot and it's enabled me to do what I do now. So, I can't hate her for that. I don't hate her at all. I think it's very sad, like you said.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be like that. So I am very grateful for being the way I am. I'm very grateful for being sensitive. And the other thing about being sensitive, you have to realize growing up in an environment with a narcissist, if you're a highly sensitive person, is like torture and torment. It really is.
It is.
Because you take everything to heart so much more. You feel everything so much more deeply. And I will also say that as highly sensitive people, you can find that you tend to attract narcissists or people who bullies or people who want to manipulate you. It's because they're drawn to your energy, right? They are
Yes.
just drawn to you. It's like moths to a flame. It's like they spot that energy a mile off and they hone in on you. And so this is why it's so very important to understand yourself and understand what it means to be highly sensitive and learn how to manage that energy, because once you learn what high sensitivity means to you and you learn how to manage your energy, you actually stop attracting those kinds of people because they can't do anything with you, right? You don't give them anything and you stop attracting them. So,
Yeah. And what I am learning now is healthy boundaries.
yes.
I'm learning that today. And I'm learning, I used to think, because growing up, because I'm a highly sensitive person and an empath, I was a people pleaser.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
and
yes. So was I.
and so I never knew healthy boundaries. I always like, oh, let me do this for you. Oh,
Mm,
that type of thing. So
mm.
today I am learning to say no. I'm learning self-care, um, those type of things today because I can't, if I don't take care of myself first, I can't take care of anybody else.
Exactly. And that's one of the most important lessons to learn. And if you've grown up in it, in an unhealthy environment, you've probably been led to believe that putting yourself first or setting boundaries is a selfish thing to do, that you need to take care of everybody else. You should be putting everyone else before yourself. But I'm here to tell you that the best way if you want to help other people, the best way you can do it is to take care of yourself first, because then you have the best of you is showing up in order to be able to help other people. But you have to put yourself first because otherwise you just become depleted. I was such a people pleaser. You could also read doormat into that. You
Yeah, yeah,
and we really do teach people how to treat us,
right. Yeah,
by what we will agree to, by what we say yes to, by what we tolerate,
yeah,
right? Until we get to the point where we say, wait a minute, that's not right for me anymore. So I'm not going to do that. And you start learning how to set boundaries and learning how to say no.
yeah. And I was going to say something else about about boundaries. Two is, people respect you too for being forthcoming instead of, you know, where you might not be as clear or, well, I don't know, uh, you
Yeah.
know, uh, like I used to be where I was, I was not, I was indecisive, you know, but today I'm much more clear
Yeah.
about my decisions.
Mhm.
So, and I'm finding that um, people appreciate that more.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And that was something I had to learn. It's that you're always so afraid of upsetting anybody, and
Right.
if
Exactly.
if I say no to this person, they'll be upset with me, or it's
Yeah.
going to make life more difficult for that person. Where in fact the opposite is true, and unless yes, if there's somebody that is used to you always saying yes and always being there for them, and then you suddenly start setting boundaries, yes, they might be a little upset in the beginning because they're used to you using you and now they can't anymore. But the majority of people, I can I can so clearly remember, this was years ago when I first started my business, and it was when I was still attracting sort of the narcissists and bullies because I didn't really understand that. What I did understand, though, was this concept of the people you attract into your life are mirrors, kind of reflecting back to you something about yourself, something that you can learn. So I did know that. And there was this one woman who sort of was attracted to me, and I couldn't figure out why, but she was a very smart businesswoman. Um, Always kind of wanted me to do things with her, and I didn't know how to say no, so I would do it. But she was such a bully. She was so mean to everybody, the way she talked to people, even if you were in a restaurant, the way she talked to wait staff and things like that. She was very, very mean. And I can remember talking to a friend of mine who's a healer. And I was saying to her, I understand this concept of people being mirrors reflecting back to you something about yourself. But I said, I can't understand what she is reflecting to me because there's no way I would treat anybody like that. I couldn't treat someone like that. And my friend said to me, no, you would never treat anyone else like that, but you are quite mean to yourself. So
Oh,
I thought, oh my goodness, there it is, right? And so that was the point where I started learning about the importance of self-care and being kinder to yourself. And as soon as I started doing that, that woman actually moved away. She moved to a different state, and I never saw her again. So
wow. That was good. That was a good point.
yeah, so
Very good
once you
point.
start learning what it is the person is in your life to teach you, then you don't need that pain, those difficult situations anymore. They just kind of resolve or go away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So Linda, so tell people what you do today. Tell everybody, because it's very interesting, what you do. You're an energy healer. You've written 8 books. You do a lot of speaking. You have workshops. Um, Interesting stuff.
Yeah, for somebody who had no confidence or self-esteem and was just such an introvert, I used to be terrified of speaking in front of people, absolutely terrified. But I love what I do, so I forced myself to go out and start talking about it. But essentially, and then it's as I've learned more about myself and uncovered who I really am, my business has sort of evolved with me as that's happened. So essentially, what I do is I started to recognize fairly early on that energy, how important energy is, particularly if you are highly sensitive. Now, when I first started my business, I didn't know, I hadn't heard the term highly sensitive. I didn't know what that was. But once I did learn about it, it was like for the first time, it made sense of who I am. And I also realized that most of my clients who came to me were also highly sensitive because I knew how to help them. So essentially, what I do is I'm a you could say a coach. I don't like to use the word coach really. It's sort of I feel like a guide. It's really helping people understand, especially highly sensitive people, understand their energy, what's happening to them, why they feel the way they do, why they're attracting what they're attracting in their life, what the relationships in their life are teaching them about themselves. So it's helping them understand themselves and how by changing themselves and their energy, they change what shows up. So they start to begin to be able to master their own energy, and therefore they gain more clarity and they start to gain more control over what happens in their lives. And that's when they start to come in alignment, and life just gets better. It starts to flow. They feel more content and peace within themselves. And
Mhm.
then that starts to show up in their lives. So, and it's however, it's really what I love to focus on. What excites me is figuring out the best way to help each individual. So it's not like, yes, I have courses, but it's not about putting everybody through the same course and saying, okay, do all these things in exactly this way and you'll get this result. But it's helping them. So all my courses are designed to help them understand themselves more. And some people are going to need to spend longer on certain things than others because sometimes the self-awareness piece. So let me back up a bit and say, if you want things to change and you want to have that sense of freedom and peace within yourself so that life just begins to flow and you enjoy your life and you feel good about yourself. If you want that, that's what I call being in alignment, energetic alignment. In order to do that, you have to release everything that's covering up. Like I said, I discovered that I was this happy little child, but then so much started to cover that up. So you have to learn what to release. And to do that, you have to start with self-awareness. And self-awareness is really the biggest piece of that. Once you start to learn who you are, then you start to know what's covering up the real you, and you start to let go, you start to release all those aspects that are not really you. And as you do that, that's when you start to come into alignment with who you really are. And that's when life starts to get a lot better and you start to feel a lot better. So I really see it as three steps: self-awareness first, then you know what to release, and then you automatically come into alignment with who you are. So really that's what I'm doing. Is I'm helping people do that. And I love to figure out, because not everybody's going to sit and meditate for an hour, or some people hate journaling, some people don't like this, some people don't like that. So what I love to do is work with the person, say, okay, well, what will work for you? How can we get you to that point of where you really feel things are starting to work for you energetically? You're starting to master your own energy and therefore the energy around you. So that's what I do, and I truly love it. I mean, the thing about working with energy is that once you start to do it, you start to see people start to see results, or they can do quite quickly, because there's a shift inside them, which then creates a shift on the outside. And where people have felt powerless before, I love to work with people when they've tried so many other things and nothing's worked, because we will find what works for them because we're
Yeah,
looking at it energetically. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of times what people don't understand is that, the reason I know this is because, you know, I'm in recovery, so and I've been sober 18 years, but for a long time I was trying to find the solution outside of myself, but really the solution is within us,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's as easy as that sounds, it's really not that easy for us.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
Right. And also, we are looking for the answer outside ourselves. And so especially when I mean, I've been on the self-help personal growth path for a long time. And yeah, I've been to a lot of energy healers, I've read a lot of books, I've taken a lot of programs, and you're always looking for that answer. It's like that one thing that's going to make the difference. And then you eventually learn that there is not one answer and there is not one thing that's going to work for everybody. Well, if you want to say there's an answer, the answer is get to know yourself,
Right.
right? And who you are is not the same as who I am, and your journey is not the same as my journey, and your experiences are not the same as my experiences. That's why so what I do, I guess you could say, it's helping people learn how to develop their own self-awareness and how to discover who they really are. Um, and that's the only thing that's going to work. You can spend all your time, energy, money looking for solutions outside yourself. I think what we do is that's what we do for a big part of our lives. And I truly believe from my experiences, there comes a point in your life where you can't do that anymore. that, sometimes we can be quite successful by looking at external things and focusing on external things. But I think there comes a point for everybody where that doesn't work anymore. Things start to fall apart. You wonder why the things that used to work don't work anymore. And I see that as your invitation, if you like, from the universe to start looking inside. It's like,
Right.
okay, you focused on the external. That's got you to where you are now. That's not going to work anymore. Now is your time to start looking inside. So the sooner you start to do that, really, the better.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And one thing I'd like to jump back to, and I was actually a guest on on someone else's podcast, but I had brought this up. Yeah, but I think that because we're talking about highly sensitive people, but I have a theory that a lot of us who have struggled with alcoholism and addiction, I think a lot of us are either empaths or highly sensitive people. And I think a lot of us maybe don't realize it, or or maybe we do. And that may be one of the reasons why we drink and use, is because we're trying to escape that may be a reason why we're trying to escape those feelings. Not that may not be the
Oh, I think you're
one.
absolutely right. I do. And a lot of people, I there are some groups on Facebook, for example, for highly sensitive people, and there are thousands of people in these groups. And I've looked in there sometimes, and people will be saying, "This is that being highly sensitive is just too much. How can I turn this off? How can I stop this?"
Yeah,
And I think that is, you're right. I think it's a lot of reason why people want to numb it. They don't want to feel it because if you don't understand how to manage it, then it's very, very overwhelming.
yeah.
And I think people just don't want to feel it. They want to numb it. They want it to go away. And so they will look to find something that will try and make it go away. When I was growing up, I just wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to fit in. Well, I now know I'm never going to be like everybody else. I'm not going to fit in. I still don't feel like I often fit in. And that's okay. I don't need to. I am who I am, and I'm very comfortable with that now. And that makes other people more comfortable around me as well. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a way of switching off this sensitivity or this intense feeling that we have. And yeah,
But
the
but
answer to it.
yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because I want people to understand that if you feel that way, if you are feeling those feelings, and you think that, and you feel like you may be a highly sensitive person, I also wanted to mention too that Elaine Aaron is the person who is the researcher who actually came up with the term highly sensitive person. But she has a website
Yes.
that is called hsperson.com. And if she's got a an assessment on there. So if you think you may be a highly sensitive person, you can go there and take the assessment. But I wanted people or listeners out there to know that you're not crazy if you're a highly sensitive person. You're not alone. And there's no need to numb it,
No.
because there are different ways to, use your abilities. And
Yeah, understanding it's the first thing. And there's also on Elaine's website, she has links to a lot of research. So if you're the kind of person who likes to understand the research, there's links to a lot of those things. I mean, when I first heard the term highly sensitive, I didn't think it applied to me. It didn't mean anything to me. I heard it. So somebody told me about her book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and okay, that was fine. I didn't do anything about it. Somebody else told me about it, and then a third person told me about it, and I thought, okay, obviously I need to read this book. But I was thinking in my mind, I thought, well, maybe there'll be something in here that I can use to help my clients as I work with them. And as soon as I started reading the book, it was like light bulbs going off all over the place because yeah, I'm de most definitely that. And for the first time, it made sense of who I am. So even if you think you're not, so yeah, the other misconception is that people think highly sensitive people are only introverts. Now, I am an introvert, but I know some extroverted, highly sensitive people as well. So if you're an extrovert and you're thinking, well, I can't be highly sensitive then. No, you can be. And it's worth reading about it because even if you read about it, learn about it, take the assessment, if you decide, well, that's not really me, I guarantee you'll know somebody in your life who is, and it will help you understand them a bit better. So I would encourage people to look into it.
Yeah, because it's very interesting,
Mm,
actually.
yeah.
And it could possibly be your superpower if you are a highly sensitive person
It
too.
is.
So,
It is. And it truly is a superpower. And, I always wondered why, sort of, as I work with people, I know sometimes I'll get a sense and I'll just ask a question or say something that I wasn't thinking. It didn't, um, I don't know where it came from. And sometimes they'll ask me, how did you know that? And I'll say, oh, well, I don't know how I knew that. Or sometimes if I'm doing a workshop and I'll say something and then somebody will say to me, oh, could you say that again? I was trying to write it down. Can you say it again? And I think, what did I say? I don't know what I said. It's like, I don't know. And that I think is part of the gift of high sensitivity. It's like you're so tuned in
yeah,
that the right thing just comes. And I'm not thinking about, oh, this is what I need to do or this is what I need to say. It just comes.
yeah,
And I think
it
that
flows.
happens. Yes, the
It
more
flows.
you comfortable you are with that sensitivity, the more that can happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Mhm.
So, so Linda, what events? Do you have any events coming up? I know you have your website, which is lindabins.com. Do you have anything coming up soon or?
Well, I do. What I'm doing at the moment is I do monthly master classes.
Okay.
Just did one this week, and I do monthly group coaching calls. So I have two membership groups. So I have a paid membership group, which I call Powerful Breakthroughs. And so people pay a monthly fee to be part of that group. And then they get to come to any of the masterclasses, any of the group coaching, they get to come to those for free. And the recordings are in the group portal, so they always get access to those. They also have a course as well. But then there's another group called Harmony Inside and Out, which is the name of my business. And that's a free group. And so members of that group get big discounts so they can come to masterclasses or group coaching or whatever they want to come to, and they get a big discount off that. So, but the best thing to do is go to my website, lindabins.com. That's where you'll find most of the information about me. And if I have an event, I put it up on there. But check out the groups like the Harmony Inside and Out group. If you're a member of that, it's free. You'll always be notified of any events that are coming up. Or just join the mailing list. I send out a weekly tip, unstoppable energy tip. So again, you'd be notified about anything that's coming up.
Yeah, she's got an awesome newsletter. So go to her website and sign up for her newsletter because it's very inspiring. Then you can see the other things that she has.
Yeah.
So do you have anything you want to leave for our listeners and viewers? Anything?
I think that the main thing I want to say is it doesn't matter what your situation is, how difficult it seems, how traumatic it is, you can change it and you change it by changing you, but you have to start by understanding yourself. So it's that self-awareness piece. Make that the most important thing in your life, understanding who you are. And that's when things start to change for you. And any situation that you are experiencing, you can turn it around. I mean, I had no confidence, no self-esteem. And now, I've gone on to do so many things that I never would have thought I could have done. So you truly can turn your life around in a big way if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, well, thank you. I am going to, we usually close, um, we usually, I usually close the podcast by asking my guests 10 questions. So,
Okay.
and they're just fun questions. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, here's the first one. What skill would you like to ultimately master and why?
Uh, Now, see, that's changed over the years. I would have said a year or so ago, I would have said tennis. I was always, because I love playing tennis and I was always trying to get better at playing tennis. I don't play on leagues and I play matches anymore, so that's not as relevant. But yeah, I would love to master tennis, but I don't know if you ever master tennis unless you're a pro. But yeah, as much as I could, I would love to.
Tennis?
Mm.
Okay. All right. What has been the highlight of your life thus far and why?
Highlight of my life. I think I'm living the highlight of my life right now. So I left home when I was 17. I got married when I was 18. I got divorced 7 years later. But now I have a wonderful husband. We've been married for 32 years and we live in the US. I'm far, far away from my family. I have a beautiful home and I'm living my highlight.
That's awesome. That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, so question three. What risk have you not taken that you would still like to take, and why haven't you?
I don't know that there's a risk I haven't taken. I'm usually really good at doing scary things.
Mhm.
I'm not the kind of person who wants to jump out of a plane or, climb a mountain or anything like that. Those are not things I've ever wanted to do, but I do a lot of scary things scary for me that are risks for me. And
Mhm.
usually like writing a book or appearing on TV or doing things like that and I usually something comes up like that I'll just say yes, I just do it and then I get really scared while I'm doing it. I think, why did I say yes to this? But yeah, I can't think of anything that I haven't done because it's too risky. I mean, if I wanted to do it, I would do it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you nothing right offhand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any nicknames or pet names?
Nicknames. Um, when I was in England and I was working, there was a guy who used to call me Lindos. And he used to follow that up with saying, "It's a small Greek island off the mainland." He always called me Lindos. I don't know why. He was the only person who did. Otherwise, um, no, haven't really had any nicknames or pet.
Okay. What person, living, dead, or a character, do you most relate to and why?
Um, One of the people I feel very connected to and I really love to listen to is Eckhart Tolle. And the reason for that is because he's not trying to be a guru, he's not trying to be anything other than who he is, and he's just this very humble, quiet person. He doesn't speak unless he really has something to say. And he's I love reading his books. He's helped me a lot. It's just because he's himself.
Mhm.
He never pretends to be anything other than who he is. And he'll say, very often he'll say, if you've been dragged along to this presentation, he said, you probably won't be able to stand it for very long. You'll want to leave. I just love that about him. He's just very, very himself.
All right. Good deal. Who who do you most admire and why? Is it him
Um,
as well, or
yeah, again, I admire people who have truly succeeded just by being themselves, to just go through life being who they are. Oprah Winfrey could be one, Eckhart Tolle is another one. But people who do a lot of good and they see the benefits of kind of growing themselves, and then they use what they learn to help other people. Anybody who does that, that's someone I truly admire. And there's a few people I follow sort of online who run these amazing animal shelters. There's one here called the Asher House, and he was something big in finance, and he quit his job and rescued one dog, and now he has this whole ranch place where he rescues so many dogs. And then there's another woman who rescues horses, wild horses that have been rounded up and then end up in a slaughter facility. And she's got a place in Oregon, and she's got a place in Florida, and a place in California, I think. And they rescue these horses and then just let them live their life running free. Things like that. People who just give up everything and just do what they're really passionate about because that's who they are. I really admire anybody like that.
I think I've seen the Asher House on Facebook.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Okay, this is kind of a trick question, just so you know. What has been your biggest mistake or regret and why? And I say that it's a trick question because usually mistakes end up being learning,
Mm.
learning, um, you learn from mistakes. So that's why I say it's a trick question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I truly do learn from every single mistake. I think probably the number of years that I put into or I spent trying to maybe looking for approval from my parents or looking for some kind of acknowledgement. And I think that's why I was sort of an overachiever in many ways. Sort of if I was going to do something, I I I would do it right away, and it had to be the best that it could be, and all of that. And I think, there's been a lot of energy wasted in perfectionism and trying to gain approval from others, and also I would say trusting other people other than not trusting myself. I spent a lot of time doing that. So yeah.
I can identify with that too. Okay, what is your favorite curse word?
I say fudge. That's ridiculous, especially on the tennis court. I got fudge, when you miss a shot. So
You're being very kind. You're being very
I'm not a swearer. No, I mean it's very, very rare for me to actually say a swear word, but usually it'll come out as fudge or somebody, think something like there's somebody who says, "Oh, shut the front door," or something like
Yeah,
that.
shut the front door. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
like
it.
that. I love those things that are, take something that could be a really bad swear word or a phrase and then sort of turn it around. I like those.
All right, fair enough. Okay, what is well, I kind of know this, but maybe not. Uh, and the only reason I ask this for my own personal, but because I like to know in recovery whether it's uh, alcoholism and addiction or mental health or anything, I like to show people that um, there's no boundaries, like there's no prejudice, like it crosses all boundaries. But I ask people what their ethnicity or their heritage is. Like mine is Irish, German, and English. So do you know what? And I mean, I know you're from England.
Yeah, it is English. I think there's some Welsh in there. There might even, I think there was a tiny little bit of Swedish in there. But yeah, predominantly English. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so last question. What do you hope your higher power, God, or the universe would say when to you when you pass or you transition or you die? What do you hope um, they would say to you?
I hope they would say, well done. Well done, you made it.
Yay!
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Linda. I'm so grateful to you and your support as far as helping me. And I'm so grateful to you for coming on my podcast and sharing
Yeah.
your story and letting people know that you're out there and you're you know uh, your inspiration is out there, your help is out there, your website is out there, and your workshops are out there. And I'm just grateful that you're here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And you just do such great work as well. I'm so grateful that you're here and I'm grateful that you're doing this, taking this to another level. So this is a yeah, this is a podcast that's going to help a lot of people, I'm sure. So
Well, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we hope you enjoyed this podcast and we hope you stay tuned for the next one. So join us again.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.